So welcome, Fiona. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too, because you are all about PR, which I know can be a really valuable part of a marketing strategy, but also I know that lots of people just don't know where to get started with that. So I'm really going to pick your brains on that, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yes, do
But
that.
what I'd love to start with is how you came to start your own PR agency in the first place.
Well, I'm quite long in the tooth, so I've got many years of experience in public relations. But the reason I got into it, actually, right at the very beginning, is I did some work experience between my public exams, and I absolutely fell in love with the industry. It was also, dare I say, at the time of, I don't know if you know the program, Absolutely Fabulous,
Yeah.
and so I think I was expecting these sort of this working life of long lunches and very glamorous. It wasn't, but that was because my first job was actually working for IBM, and a tech giant is obviously going to be very different to a fashion client. But I still absolutely I loved what I was doing, and I think I was also I'm naturally very happy to talk about other people and not myself. And I think it's very difficult if you're in public relations, you have to put your own ego aside, and which was fine, because I don't have much of an ego, and I'm very happy shining the light on other people. But and also from public relations, which was a very sort of jump straight in the deep end, having this absolutely huge client. I also then worked in a number of other sort of big brand names too, but I also then shifted more into the marketing side. So I've worked in agencies for PR, I've worked in-house for PR, I've done marketing, I've worked for Polygram Records. So, that's quite a broad experience. I've worked with brand identity and design and new product development. So I've got a really broad experience, and I just absolutely love what I did. But I then took a career break when I had children, and I think this is probably that's quite common. You think you can still do it all, but it was very difficult. I was working for businesses at a time when there wasn't much maternity benefit, and I tried to keep it going, and it just wasn't for me, it wasn't for them. I couldn't deliver what I wanted to deliver, so I pressed pause for a while. And then as my children got older, I knew that I always had something in me, something that I wanted to do, something else that I wanted to fulfill, and a sort of purpose. And I also so over time, I also then ended up running a retail business, and I was very creative. So I was making things and selling, designing things, and sort of it was homewares and interior bits and pieces for life, making myself. So I went off on a tangent in doing that, and again, absolutely loving it. But I didn't feel properly fulfilled. There was something missing, and it came back, I suppose, over time. Um, it came back that I never thought I'd go back into public relations per se. I just very much thought that was something that I did in my past, but I suddenly realized that skill set, that marketing skill set, communications, was still there. And I got asked by a local business. They said they needed some help. They said, we're looking for someone to sort of create some awareness. And I was like, oh, I can do that in my sleep. And then suddenly realized I was onto something, and I went back to help them. And I realized the passion was still there, the skill set was still there, and I saw the benefits. And I think that for me was the main. I just saw what I could do to help them. And so with that in mind, I knew that I wanted to help smaller businesses and use that sort of corporate and very broad experience to help the smaller businesses.
I
And
love
that,
that journey, and it's very similar to my own journey actually. And when I started my business after having my daughter, and knowing that I wanted to keep my hand in, and just so that I could keep my skills fresh, ready to go back to the office. But then I realized I didn't want to go back to the office. I was really enjoying the work I was doing, and the flexibility. But it got to a point where I realized that particular work I was doing, working on communication strategies for large corporate and UN and visibility plans for these really important people, was great. but it wasn't really my passion. And I took a tangent as well and started a product business in the wellness business sphere, which was great. And it taught me some really exciting skills, because the first time I had to actually sell sell in person, and work with others, and yeah, so that was really interesting, but it wasn't really my passion either, but it introduced me to other small businesses who were just really struggling with, well, how do I know I've got the skills, I know I get results from my clients, but how do I get clients? How do I do that where I can do it in a balanced way, where it's not all, I'm just doing all the promotion, all the working with clients, and then you have no clients, so you have to, that up and down cycle.
Yeah.
And got back to what I love as well, and like yourself, realized, yeah, I was in the right place to start with. So
Yeah.
but working with small businesses is a different experience, I think, but I'm loving it.
Absolutely. And I think also, I am a business owner. And so not only in my current business, but in the retail business that I set up, and you learn so much from that. So although it's no longer going, the skills and the knowledge I can draw upon, and the experiences. So I know what it feels like to, as you say, it's just something as simple as having to sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And something you can put back into. So when I talk to business owners, I feel like I share the hurdles they have to jump and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to PR for small businesses, it's quite different to a large corporate where they've got endless resources and money and time and all of these things. When you're working with a small business, or even an individual who has their enterprise, we're talking about, what do you call these people? Is it solopreneurs? Is that the thing they do? Like, how can they start with PR when they have to do everything? Is it possible to start on just with a very few resources?
Um, it's definitely possible. And I think, just to go back a stage, I think a lot of people dismiss public relations for a number of reasons, but and the main one being they see it only for large businesses. And they think, well, I'm on my own, and what are going to be the benefits? Where do I start? Should I even consider it? I've got my head around that I need to do marketing, but I mean, and that's a sort of another issue, because marketing is such an umbrella, and perhaps people don't understand the difference between marketing, advertising, public relations, and how they all fit together. But they just sort of, and it's easier, isn't it, to step away from public relations, especially when people fear that it's all about them. They might have to talk about themselves. Perhaps they're uncomfortable about doing that, or they see something perhaps that's gone slightly awry in the press, and what if I'm misrepresented, or all these worries come, and you can just see why people back off and think, I'll do an advert. I'll pay some money and I'll get it placed, instead of doing public relations. But what I would say, and obviously I know I'm biased because I'm passionate about public relations, but public relations has, in my opinion, but I know it's been backed up with studies, much more impact than advertising, for example, because just little things like, you can target your public relations so much more than you can target advertising. You get to say more and show more and develop what you're saying more. For example, an advert is, I'm talking about traditional media here, but it is a single page or a half page or whatever it might be, and it says along the lines of, buy my product, it works, and there's a nice picture. But in public relations, you can say why it works and how it works and the benefits to the people. You also can have a third party person talking about your product, which gives your product or service an endorsement. And I think that's where you're just leveraging so much more. You're leveraging your business over and above, say, an advertisement. So that's talking about PR in the traditional sense. But it is something, if you take public relations back to its basic form, and this is what I truly believe in, it's about reputation management. And so don't think of PR as being press relations, but think about it as building your reputation. And your reputation, when you're so closely aligned with your business and you're so passionate about your business is your personal reputation. The two go together. So you need that business reputation. And so there are some easy steps you can take to leverage your reputation, to work out your positioning, to make sure that you're building that credibility and that trust. And that's what, as a business owner, you're aiming for, because people buy from people. And so if you can demonstrate that, the knowledge and the credibility and trust, that will really help with your sales and your sort of loyal following of customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just touched on so many important points there that I think are misunderstood with public relations, particularly versus advertising. As you say, it's all about your story, and you can go into more detail about all the wonderful elements about your business, but it's not necessarily you saying I'm amazing by my stuff. It's someone else, even if you are the one that wrote it all. It's being published everywhere and it's somewhere else, and so you benefit from their credibility and their endorsement, as you say, which is so powerful. And I saw
Absolutely.
it. I worked in 3 of the roles that I had in marketing. PR was part of them, and it was just so exciting. One, it's really exciting to see yourself published. Well, not myself, but my company published in the papers. But it just seeing how that snowballed as well, because very often you get published and then people come to you say, "Oh, that I love that article. Can we talk about this, or can you talk about that, or can?" So you get more of that as well. You can build up a reputation, or particularly with certain journalists. I found in one particular company, it was quite a niche company, and because I was doing the PR myself and I could turn it around really quickly, they loved me. They were like, "Oh, we've been let down again," because this is always a big problem in media, is that you have the space and then suddenly someone drops out and then you have to fill it really quickly. So can you get me an article in the next 3 hours? Like, sure. So it and but then our reputation grew incredibly. And for one particular company, they were under threat of being bought out by another newer company, which was made up of their own employees that had left, and they were going to take them over, which they didn't want. But because they were able to increase their reputation through PR, they were able to fight back and actually had the reverse situation. So it was just so powerful, and all it took was a bit of my time.
I know, and now you've now touched on so many things, because obviously you've got the whole thing of journalists are looking to speak to people for quotes. So that is brilliant, as it positions you as an expert. And again, it's all part of the credibility and leveraging your business, because once you start getting that reputation amongst the journalists that you're always available, or you can turn something around quickly, that's going to work in their favours. So they'll come to you. It's also the fact that we've touched on, so now also social media is part of public relations. So things like having an influencer or blogger talk about your product or your service, that's absolutely huge now. That can have a massive impact on your business. And I don't want to sound negative when I say this, but these things don't happen overnight, but they can happen. That's the point, and it's all about building relationships. So it's building relationships with the journalists, building relationships with key people of influence, which is your influencers and your bloggers. There are lots of little things that you can be doing, but it all falls under the PR banner, which is, as we said, it's more about reputation and what you can do. What you can do within that. So it is press releases and talking to the press, but there are other things too, as you said, talking to other parties who then get to mention your product, service. Yeah.
So in today's world, what does a PR for a small company look like? Is there still a place for traditional PR in like the press, or and in radio, TV, or is it mostly now online and working with influencers?
I think they're now sort of two distinct markets. So the traditional public relations is very much the press, the media, the radio and the television. And I think as a small business owner, it's very easy to dismiss that. Again, I haven't got the budget. I'm not from a big corporate. I don't have any news. And I think a lot of people will struggle with the content. Well, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to say? So that when something wonderful happens, like they win an award or they're launching a new product, that's when they've got fantastic news stories. But there are also elements you can you can pull out. And I suppose the benefit of talking to someone like myself is we can work out where the good angles are. But let's not forget that doing your own public relations is free. So if you have got a new product, or you've won an award, you can do your own public relations for free and have the most enormous impact if you get into a national, or picked up by a radio station, as you just said. And so that's the traditional sense of traditional PR. But you've now got digital PR, which is very much more the social media, the blogging, the influencers, all the backlinks that go on behind our in the ether, that all impacts back to your website and the links, and again helps with your SEO. And the two work very well together. So do not dismiss traditional PR by saying nobody reads newspapers anymore, or when was the last time you listened to the radio, because they're still just as important, particularly when publications now have an online presence. And so what you've got to remember is, I mean, depending on your product and what it is, or your service and what it is you're trying to actually achieve, what your aims and objectives are, but the two work very well together. So for example, a newspaper article that's got your website link on it and goes on their digital version will link back to your website, will help with your SEO. And it is also something, the article can be used all over your social media. And you can repurpose it. That's the other thing. Make sure that everyone knows you have appeared in the, say, newspaper or on the radio, even if it was a week ago, it doesn't matter. So that's how you can use the two together. And in some instances, it might be right to only look at, say, blogging or influencer reach on, say, Instagram. The best thing about the digital PR is it's much more measurable than traditional public relations. But again, I think that to start at the beginning, you've got to say, what do I want to achieve? What is the point of this campaign? Because you've won a great award and you want to tell people about it. But don't you want to do just more than that? You want them to clock that you've won the award, but tell them why that's important and why that award is useful to them as a potential customer. And again, put it across your social media. It's about positioning in that respect and creating awareness, but for a reason. And once you've got your objective and your aim, you've got something to measure it against, so that you can measure it, say, an increase in followers on your social. And that's a nice, again, the benefits of digital. But you can also say, if it hadn't been for that traditional article or the radio interview, I can see, that's where it all came from. So it's harder to put metrics on it, but the two do work side by side, and there's definitely still a place for traditional public relations.
Thank you. And you just, again, shared so much in that. And I like that you touched on the fact that a lot of people, they get published in the press or on a blog, like, yay, but then they don't use that. I mean, that's really amazing content. You want to go and tell everyone, oh, look, this I was featured here because someone else thinks I'm really good at this, and really make the most of that endorsement. Don't just hide it. And your current network and your clients will feel so proud that they have backed you and you're getting that coverage. It shines on them too. They think, oh, I made the right decision to get involved with Fiona, and look, I'm not alone. Other people think she's great too. So it's sharing that content more widely and making it part of your wider visibility and marketing, I think, is really important. And I see so many people miss that opportunity, and it's such a shame because it's so easy, that part as well. You've done the hard work, make the most of it.
It's so true, because it's exactly that. They've done the hard work and they've got some fantastic, could just be a single mention in a publication. But I think everyone loves, as you say, is thrilled. Everyone is so positive. Everyone likes to, they really enjoy seeing someone else having that recognition. And it is frustrating when maybe it's just a quick post or a snapshot of the article or something, and there's so many things you can do to repurpose it. And let's face it, I think every business owner struggles for content. And I mean, you know, if someone said, right, sit down and write a blog, it's always difficult to know where to start. But you've done the hard work. You've got an article. Now, it might not be about you. It might just have a mention. But within that article are going to be so many topics that you can discuss. You can turn it into a video. You can turn it into a blog. You can do quotes. There's all sorts of bits and pieces you can do that all relate back to that article, which has got the endorsement of the whether it's trade publication or particular interest magazine. It's positioning and it's leverage, and please just take my advice and make the most of it.
So for anyone out there who is like thinking, oh yeah, great, this sounds really interesting, I'd love to explore that for my business, where would you advise them to get started?
Looking into public relations, where would you get started? So I think as I said earlier, I think what you really need to do is look at what you want to achieve. So some people with their sort of awareness campaigns say, actually, I want more followers. Then so you need to have that in mind. You absolutely have to have your audience in mind. There's no point in talking to the wrong publication or about the wrong topic. And whilst no news is good news, and it's not going to hinder you, it's not going to benefit your business if you're talking about something completely irrelevant, or perhaps you're jumping on a soapbox about something that actually could put customers off. So make sure you've got the right audience in mind. And then obviously you've got to find your story, and sometimes that will come naturally. As I said, maybe you've won an award, or there's something new that you're offering, but sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down with a pad of paper and a glass of wine or something, and just mapping out some ideas, thinking about experiences that you've had, something from your past that might still be relevant to what you're working on now, and you will begin to see a pattern. And there is a sort of, it will come over time. There is an art to it. I think it's difficult if you've never done anything like this before to suddenly come up with a great hook, as we call it, and an exciting angle to talk about with the press. And obviously monitor things like Twitter, because Twitter are really good. A lot of journalists are on Twitter, and they're often looking for people to help out with quotes and things that we've touched on. So those are all good places to start. That it, yes, I mean, I don't mean it to sound like a minefield, because I think a lot of people again are scared about writing, but we can all write. And it's important to remember, if you're writing about your own business, then you're writing from the heart, because you are your business, and you cannot beat being genuine and authentic.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those skills as well that once you get started and you have its success, maybe just a quote, as you say, is picked up, and on Twitter, and I know it's at journo requests, you can put that in and you'll find all the journalists looking for quotes, and then you just reply and say, oh, what about this, and you put your short reply in. And I had an article published in Fast Company and I had no idea, and that's how I got it, was from journal requests. And this lady asked for people's feedback on a particular situation, and in fact she took my answer and wrote an entire article just on that. It was only when someone else contacted me and said, oh, I saw your article, it was really interesting. I was like, really? I've been trying to get into Fast Company. And there are
beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, so just answer some of these and you'll get into the pattern, and you'll start to see what people are looking for. And I'm writing a book at the minute, so I'm refreshing my writing knowledge on, and there's that great advice from Les Brown, and he's actually talking about public speaking, but he said, every storyteller is a great story reader. So once you read other content and discover what you like and what works for you, and you can take ideas from that as well. I mean, there's very little that's really new out there, so you can learn from people who've gone before and what works. And it's all out there because it's in the media. It's the easiest thing to find ever.
So I was going to say, so it's hashtag journo request on Twitter, and the other one that is quite good for just to sort of finding your way and is help a reporter out, which is HARO. If you Google that, or hashtag, I think hashtag on Twitter, and then you'll find out, and then journalists use that when they're looking for people to quote on something. So that's always a good place to start, and a really easy place to dip your toe in the water. I feel like there are so many elements to public relations, and I feel like I've glossed over so many of them, and I keep thinking, oh, that's an important part. I don't want to sort of bombard people with too much, but there are so many different elements, and you know, you have to, I think, baby steps. That's probably just dip your toe in and start, as you said, start writing, and you soon get a feel for it. And at the end of the day, you've got to write from the heart. And then, and also actually, if you want to read it back, that's the other thing, because if you're bored by your own writing, then everyone else will be too.
Yeah, or read it out loud, and you
Yes,
soon see where you stumble over things that, well, they're not very clear.
yes.
Yeah.
There are some good apps as well. For example, there's an app called Hemingway, which will look at your written word and work out and sort of highlight sentences that were too long, or went sort of too waffly, or perhaps a grammatical error, which is difficult. And then obviously there's Grammarly as well for that. So that, you know, but I'm saying don't be put off. Don't be put off by thinking you haven't got writing skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Thank you so much, Fiona. So, and I know if anyone does have any questions about where to get started, that you're actually offering very generously a free consultation for the first 5 people that contact you through LinkedIn. So yeah, if you're sat there thinking, oh, this is interesting, I want to get started, then go and track Fiona down, and it's Fiona. When they're typing in, it's Fiona Johnson with a H.
Yes. No, Johnson. Yes. Yeah.
So go and find Fiona and claim one of those, because that's going to be so valuable to help you get started. Fiona, thank you so much. And you've got a tool as well that people can download. Do you want to tell people a bit more about that?
Yes. So I'm also running public relations workshops, which I've named How to Boss Your Own PR. And it is exactly what we've been talking about today, how to get started, some helpful tips, and just more about what you can be doing and how to find your story, how to approach journalists. So I'm running workshops which you can attend. They're online, so it doesn't matter where you're based. But also, as you said earlier, I'm very happy to talk through where to start on a one-to-one basis, and to help you, or maybe you've already got an idea and I can help you flesh it out and sort of send you in the right direction from which journalists to speak to and what publications to approach. So I'm very happy. I just really enjoy sharing that broad knowledge that I've gained over the years. So
We can tell.
I look forward to speaking to some of you soon.
So Fiona, you've shared so much amazing information already with us, but is there anything we haven't touched on yet that you'd really like to share with other female entrepreneurs out there to encourage their own journey?
Yes, I suppose I haven't touched on this, and I would like to do it again. So be authentic. I cannot stress strongly enough, people buy from people, and it's not just a matter of liking you, it's back to that know, like and trust, and that building credibility, and it all starts with being yourself. I think people can see through a fake, so I would definitely say be authentic. The other thing I've learned as a business owner, I'm terribly hard on myself, and I want to say to all of you, don't be hard on yourself. I think we all want, you know, we all have guilt, perhaps as particularly as parents, or guilt that we're not focusing on our business enough. Maybe it's a side hustle and you're trying to juggle too much, and you sort of think, I should be doing more, I should be doing it faster, I should be doing it harder, all these things. And I'm still really hard on myself, but I'm learning to let it go a little bit, because actually we can still, as business owners, we can still get there. And it's not a case of taking longer or anything like that, but beating yourself up doesn't do you any good. It really doesn't. So I've learned now to sort of to stop, maybe go for a walk, fresh air, nature, and that's what works for me. Come back, and I'm back on it again, and that's the demons, the sort of the tough demons have gone. So I think running your business is so rewarding, and the freedom and the possibilities and opportunities it offers you, but it does come at a cost with the guilt, if that's what you like to call it, that beating yourself up. So please don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, we were talking recently with Linda Heffernan on the show about the importance of being kindful to
Hmm.
yourself. And as you say, it's so easy to compare yourself to others, think you're not good enough, you're not expert enough, you're not ready enough, you should have done all of these things, but
Yeah,
none of that is going to help you. None of that moves you forward. It helps you, it just helps keep you stuck. So you just have to find your what works for you, and whether it's singing and dancing around the kitchen, going for a
yeah,
walk, going meeting up with a friend for a coffee, or just a
yeah,
change of scene that's going to help you get that bit of perspective and come back. And the number of times I've done that and sat back at my desk and I was like, oh, I just have to do this. You know?
yeah.
And you realize that, yeah, it's never as bad as you think, and just trust the process. I mean, things don't happen overnight for anybody when they start their own business, and you just have to go with it, learn your lessons, and enjoy the adventure.
And actually, I've just thought one other thing, which would be
Mm.
a good takeaway as a sort of public relations takeaway, to people, that is something they can do themselves. That is a absolute huge sort of winner for businesses. A top tip is make sure that you've got your case studies and your testimonials sorted. So case studies, both of those come under the banner of reputation, of outbound communications, and just start drawing up. They don't have to be huge, but talk to past customers, talk about what you've achieved, how you've helped them, get those case studies sorted, and obviously put them on your website, use them on your social media. And again, back to those moments when you're feeling terrible and you're beating yourself up again, read those case studies, and it will just remind you that this is what you can do to help other people with your business, and this is your passion, this is why you started, and all these things help to remind you that you're there for, it's a good thing. It's, it's for the right reasons.
I love that advice, and it's so powerful. So you have your case studies as social proof, which is a really great tool to have to get when new clients, so they get more perspective and understand what they can expect from the experience of working with you, but also as a reminder that you do get amazing results for your clients, and if you stop, you're going to deny so many more people of help, the help that you can bring for them. So that's fantastic advice. Fiona, thank you so much for everything you've shared today. You've really gone into a lot of depth into how to get started with PR and what that looks like today, and also like some wonderful encouragement for everyone on this journey.
Thank you. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's lovely to share my knowledge, and I hope that that somewhere some of the PR dust has settled on people, and then they've really decided that it's something they can do themselves, and it has a huge impact and a huge benefit on your business.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Fiona.